professor at the University of Chicago named Dorian Abbott. Has anyone heard of him this past week? All right, so Professor Abbott, I have no idea what his actual politics are. I don't know who he votes for, anything like that. He's a professor in the geography or geosciences department at the University of Chicago, and he was invited to give a prestigious lecture at MIT on the environment of exoplanets. I have no idea what that might look like. However, he was disinvited this past week, and there was an enormous hue and cry from some students about him coming, and MIT capitulated, and they disinvited him from giving this talk. And you hear about this and you think, well, he must be some kind of moral monster, right? I mean, after all, if they're actually disinviting him from giving a speech at MIT despite his sterling scientific credentials, there must be something horribly wrong with the man. Well, it turns out that his crime was that he spoke about the need for focusing on individual merit in higher education. And that was sufficient to stir up a group of students and essentially call for him to be disinvited. And MIT, an extraordinarily prestigious institution supposed to be focused on the search for truth and scientific truth, caved. They caved. So that's just one example from this past week about some of what's going on college campuses. There's also been other news recently. The Foundation for Individual Rights in Education just did a survey of 37,000 students, and some of the results are absolutely frightening on freedom of speech. So I want to make certain I get the numbers right because they are really astounding. 66% of the students they surveyed said that they thought it would be appropriate in some circumstances to shout down speakers that they found offensive. 66%. 23% said that they thought it would be appropriate to use violence to shut down speakers that they found offensive. 80% of students said that they self-censor on campus. Now, given those first two percentages, that's probably not surprising. This is also, I think, related to the ideological skew of the professoriate in the academy. If you just look around at different fields, it's very difficult to find people who self-identify as conservative or on the right, or even now as being even moderate or moderately on the left. So, for instance, in 1990, 41% of professors identified as far left. 41%. In 2014, that had risen to 60%. 60%. The number of self-identified conservatives had decreased from 18 to 13%. There's a professor in the United Kingdom, Eric Kaufman, who's done surveys across the English-speaking world, and he's found that the self-censorship among conservative professors on campuses is 70% in the United States, 70% in the social sciences and humanities. Now, what effect does this have on college campuses? Well, I think you can obviously infer that many people are going to, as many students say they do, self-censor. But what does this do to our students? What does it do to our students? I think we do a great disservice to our students when we do not prepare them to go and live in a broad and diverse society. And the only way to do that on campus is to expose them to people who disagree with them. And if students are afraid to speak up and our faculty are afraid to speak up, then that is simply not going to happen. It's impossible for it to happen. And it's going to continue. The other thing that happens, particularly in the area of scholarship, is that it distorts scholarship. Some of you might have seen an article just recently in the Atlantic Monthly, and I'll close with this, because this captures what happens when you have completely homogeneous disciplines in higher education. That is, what happens is that really error is allowed to go unchallenged. So there's an article in the Atlantic Monthly, just in the past 2 weeks, I believe, discussing how it was that psychologists missed the fact that there are, in fact, left-wing authoritarians. There's actually a conference on this in, I believe, last year, 2020. Does left-wing authoritarianism exist? 50 to 70 years, psychologists have been denying the possibility that left-wing authoritarianism is actually a thing. This, of course, is the era of Stalin, Mao, and Pol Pot. They're stacking bodies so high that they're blocking out the sun, and yet it's a mystery whether or not we can find left-wing authoritarianism. Now, I'll give credit to some psychologists who have said, maybe we have made a mistake here. Maybe we need to challenge our precepts, because what they did is they essentially defined things on the right as being necessarily authoritarian, and then would not ask similar kinds of questions of people on the left. And so they've started to correct this, but for decades, there was a disciplinary commitment to what you could call error, as a result of the fact that there was no one there to challenge their presuppositions. So I think this is the problem on campuses today. It's a serious problem. It's what makes me thankful for regents like Heidi who have stood up for free speech consistently. And then there are alternatives like Prager University where students can go and find out alternative sources of information. Doesn't mean they have to agree, but they at least need to have access to different points of view. So Heidi, I will turn it now over to you. I hope I was brief enough for you.
Well, hi, everybody. How you doing this afternoon? Good. Thank you, Josh. Isn't he fantastic? Josh is a shining star in the University of Colorado system, and when people talk about who's defending conservative students and principals, I always point out the work he's doing down at UCCS, as well as his one of his partners in crime, Sarah Haggerton, down here as well. So shout out to Sarah, too. So I'm Heidi Ganahl. I'm so happy to have you here today, and I am so excited for you to hear Dennis. I mean, I'm sure many of you listen, but just soaking up his wisdom over the last couple of days, I've so enjoyed it, and it's just, it's gonna be such a fun conversation. Before we get started, just wanted to tell you a little bit about me and why we're here. I am a mom of 4. I have a 26-year-old, a 12-year-old, and twins that are 9. I'm married to one of the top barbecue cooks in the country, Jason, who has GQ Barbecue. Not one open down here yet, soon. And I'm also an entrepreneur. I started Camp Bow Wow, the country's largest pet care franchise. And I also started She Factor with my oldest daughter to help young women launch a life they love. And several other nonprofits as well, the Fight Back Foundation, Moms Fight Back, and Free to Be, which is an organization to help promote lively debate on college campuses. And my last role is as a University of Colorado Regent. I ran to be a regent, because in Colorado you have to run for office to be a regent, statewide in 2016. And I ran against one of the most formidable Democrats, Alice Madden, who was one of the architects of the blueprint with Jared Polis. And I won by about 55,000 votes and started my journey into higher education. And boy, what a journey it has been. It's been 5 years, and I've been so blessed to be surrounded by great people like Josh and listening to Dennis Prager and listening to other advocates for free speech on college campuses, for keeping the cost of college down, for diversity of thought to make sure we're encouraging that students can hear both sides of an issue. I think that's so important these days. And also civics education, and getting civics education put back into our education curriculum. And not just in higher ed, but in K through 12. So that's my background. I am a warrior for free speech. I am in love with America. I think the founding principles are amazing. I was very blessed to live the American dream, and I want to protect that for my kids, for your kids, our grandkids. I think now is the time we have to stand up and speak very loudly to do so. So I think showing up is half the battle, so I'm so proud and happy that you're here. And I'd like to, at this point, bring Dennis up to the stage, and we're gonna have some fun and banter back and forth. I don't think Dennis needs an introduction, but wow, he is such a fantastic background. Dennis, come on up. Dennis, one of the things I just learned about you is that you love bulldogs. Is that right?
Oh, boy. Are we going to have to switch mic? We don't have a second mic?
No, this one right here. Yeah, you take that one.
Good, that'll be better. So I'm sorry to actually take the question seriously and give a long answer. But if you've heard me, I'm such a stickler for accuracy. So my wife's here. She loves bulldogs. I really like them. Okay. My bulldog is actually, and this is, I think, true, the most famous dog in America. Are you familiar with Otto? Any of you familiar with Otto? Okay, there you go. He's in my fireside chat, which I do every week. There are 209 up there, and I think you would enjoy watching them a lot.
Well, Dennis, to follow up, can you guys hear me okay? Is the mic
That-
working? Okay, great.
Is it working? Okay. Well, so, does this work? No.
I don't think it's working. Yep.
No, it's not. I know Mike's.
You're kind of a pro in that regard. Here,
All right, so we'll have to do this way. We'll have to swap.
gotta love technology, right? So, Dennis, following up on Josh and his conversation about free speech, let's start there because as a regent at the University of Colorado, wow, the stories I could tell about free speech on college campuses, one that you might relate to is a young student named Ashley who was in a class on women's studies, and they were looking at the wage gap. And she asked if she could show a PragerU video on the topic. Yep. She did, and boy, the classroom erupted, and I mean, they were yelling at her, accusing her of being jaded and being a white supremacist, homophobic, like all the things, right, the isms. And she got out of the class alive, but she called me as a regent and said, I just need to tell you about this experience, and they wouldn't even have a conversation about the facts and whether it was true.
If there were conversations about facts, America would be conservative. All leftism is passion, is emotion, all, entirely. There is no fact-based leftism. There's fact-based liberalism, there's fact-based conservatism. There is no fact-based leftism. Men do not give birth. Okay? It's a fact. That is a fact. It is an emotion. It is an ideology that men give birth. That people say it is proof of the power of intimidation and media to brainwash people into absurdity. Truly, I can't think of something analogous to men give birth for absurdity. Can you? We've reached the point. But you must understand that in medical schools, doctors teaching courses who say women give birth are attacked by their woke students for not saying birthing persons give birth. Persons, not women. There was a huge issue, it was either Canada or Britain, and I reported it on my radio show, on the issue of a professor saying that women have cervixes and was roundly condemned for saying that. So once you reach that, of course there would be no debate on the wage gap. Of course not. There's no debate on any left-wing thing. So I'll end with this, because this is something obviously I could talk about a great deal, but I have said for years, the left does not debate, it smears. That's a fact, that is not an opinion. They never debate. There is no leftist I would refuse to have on my radio show, but they don't come on. Howard Zinn came on before he died. That should be redundant, but I nevertheless want to note that I am aware he died, and he came on prior to that. So I have offered tens of thousands of dollars for New York Times left-wing opinion writers to have a public debate with me. Or not just me, or Larry Elder, who is very close, I'm very close with him now, is nationally known. I have known what a gem he is for 30 years. They never debate. Ta-Nehisi Coates and Ibram X. Kendi, these are nothings. They are nothings. They say nothing of importance. They're propagandists. They're hate mongers. Nobody, but they never debate. Let them debate a black conservative. Let them debate Candace Owens. Let them debate Larry Elder or Tom Sowell. They would never do it. They would never do it. So please understand, there is no intellectual / rational / factual basis for leftism. That's why they started screaming at the end of a 5-minute video. I don't remember who gave it, but it is a scholar. And let them show where it's wrong, but they don't.
One of the things as a regent that I've done at CU is try to start a debate club or revive the debate club in the University of Colorado system, specifically at Boulder. And I spent 2 years trying to do that when I was first a regent, could not get students to show up, and it wasn't our side that wouldn't show up, it was the other side. So I decided to start hosting debates of well-known figures to get at least to model feisty collaborative debate, right? And so we had a debate between Nigel Farage and Vicente Fox on globalism versus nationalism, packed the house, and I thought, great, this is gonna get people excited about debate and get the students willing to do a debate club here. It wouldn't work. It just wouldn't work.
Well, that's right. They're not interested in debate. Debate implies there are two sides. That ends it for the left. It does. You see, I have known this all of my life. I have said all of my life, every leftist is a totalitarian. There's no example of the left taking power anywhere on earth since Lenin in 1917 where they have allowed dissent. There is no example. Okay? That's a big statement I just made. If I'm wrong, it reflects poorly on me. Find me one example of the left taking over an institution or a country and dissent is allowed. Liberals allow dissent, and that's why I always draw a distinction between liberalism and leftism. The fact is they have virtually nothing in common, but liberals vote for leftists. This country might be destroyed, and it will be liberals who do it because they're the ones who vote for the left. Because they've been brainwashed, literally. They've been brainwashed to think we conservatives are their enemy and not the left is their enemy. Example, and I give PragerU video for 5 minutes with 6 examples. But here's an example. All black dormitories on a college campus. 2 groups are for this. The Ku Klux Klan and the left. Liberals are against it, they're for integration. Conservatives are against it, they're for integration. And yet, liberals keep voting for the left. They will make segregated dorms, and liberals will continue to vote left. That is the moral scandal of our times, the weakness of the liberal. The left is evil, and the liberal is weak. Weakness confronting evil means evil wins.
Dennis, one of the things on that front, we do have a dorm at CU Boulder, a RAP.
An all-black dorm?
A residence academic program, yes. But a hot topic right now that I'm hearing a lot about are the mandates. And one of the questions that came through on social media was, what is the best way as a college student to argue for medical liberty?
Well, you don't need the word medical.
Yeah, that's a good point, good point.
What is the best way to argue for liberty? Look, if enough people said, we're not sending our child to such a college, the death rate among college-age human beings of COVID is infinitesimally small. It is an act of child abuse to give a child this vaccine. Pure, undiluted child abuse. The medical profession has been ruined by the left, because the left ruins everything it touches. I have no issue if an older person wants to take the vaccine, I have no issue. But to give it to children, to give it to college-age kids, this will be recorded eventually when truth comes out, maybe not in your lifetime. But one day it will be regarded as massive hysteria, and the price paid by young people was humongous. So, look, I don't think that I don't think you should send your kid to college unless it's a very wonderful college. I don't think you should send your kids to 90% of America's elementary schools and high schools. It's all of you who are grandparents should, if you have any money, you should tell your children, we will subsidize or pay entirely for the homeschooling of your children. Because they're afraid, the reason a lot of people don't do homeschooling is their economic fears. We can't afford to have somebody stay home. And so if the grandparent has money, and this is not fortunes of money, it's just to compensate for what losses there might be in having homeschooling. So say, I will cover it. I don't want my grandchildren ruined by sick people teaching them, having, what is my favorite again? Sue, what's the study hour? Drag queen, right, drag queen what? Story hour, yes. Drag queen story hour for kids who were 5 years old in a public school or in a private school. A 5-year-old should be subjected to a drag queen. A drag queen is not transgender. That is a cisgender, to use their terminology, male, who dresses up in women's clothing. And that's just the best thing for a 5-year-old to see, right? That's beautiful. The left hates children's innocence because they hate people. It is not possible to overstate the damage the left does. It is a force, it's a tsunami of chaos. So what can this kid do for medical liberty? Probably nothing, except not go. I mean, if he has to if he's going to go to medical school or get a PhD in physics, he has no choice. But he should go to a state that does not allow colleges to make such mandates. Where is this student? We didn't say, right?
Well, University of Colorado.
Okay,
There's
so,
many.
all right. So there are states where that is not done, where you can attend college without having been vaccinated. He should go there. But to fight it on the University of Colorado campus, that's why there's a novel called Don Quixote.
All right, Dennis, let's shift gears a little bit. I grew up in California, in Southern California, till I was 12, and then my folks moved us to Monument. My dad was a police officer and saw what was happening and wasn't comfortable with kind of what was going on in society out there. He wanted us a simpler life for us. You live in California. I've been talking to Sue about it a bit too, and things are changing a lot. I think Ben Shapiro's moved out, Joe Rogan's moved out, Elon Musk just announced he's moving out. Are you going to stay and fight the good fight, or are you going to leave?
I'm not staying to fight the good fight. I'm staying because I love too many people there. It's the only reason I'm there. I'm a people person. It's the best part of life is other people. And I have a tremendous community of wonderful human beings in my life. If they all moved, I'd move. I have zero commitment to fighting in California. I fight nationally. California is a wasteland, total wasteland. Just as Washington, basically it goes like this. The more natural beauty, the more leftism. Okay? Texas, which has no natural beauty, is a conservative state. Right? Does Oklahoma even have a hill? I'm not sure. Very conservative. It's sad, but it's true. They took over all the beautiful parts. The West Coast is stunningly beautiful. It is. But look at Washington and Oregon. I mean, it's beyond belief. In Washington and in Seattle, the city council voted to defund police. That's evil. That means more innocent people will die. That's all it means. Do you understand that? The only effect of defunding police is the death of innocent people in their city, but they don't care. The left is mean. The left is sick. You have to understand this. Now, they're also, a lot are nice. So I said this last night, and it's very important to know. Nice and wise are not synonymous. And no wisdom means evil. Goodness is predicated on wisdom, not on a good heart. Very few people have a bad heart. There are some, but most people not. The vast amount of evil done in the 20th century was done by people thinking they're doing good. Okay? People who died for communism thought it was a great thing. People who died for Hitler thought it was a great thing. A great thing. This will revive Germany. So that's why, by the way, I'm religious, because there's infinitely more wisdom in any page of the Bible than in all of Harvard. And one example is, do not trust the heart. The Bible trusts the heart as far as it can throw it. I don't care if you have a good heart. It is of no interest to me, none whatsoever. I care what you do, what you advocate. So all these nice people in Washington and Oregon and California vote for people whose policies lead to the death of the innocent, to fecal matter in streets. But it doesn't bother the left. This is what's so amazing. Human feces in the streets of San Francisco don't bother leftists. That's eerie. It is eerie. They are not disturbed by what disturbs everyone in this room. You are disturbed by the increase in the murder rate. They are not. It means nothing to the left, nothing. If you raise the issue, you're a racist. In other words, if you say, more blacks are being killed because there are fewer police, you're a racist. Larry Elder was called in the pages of the Los Angeles Times the black face of white supremacy. How is that possible? How is that possible? They're sick. Did the Erica D. Smith, this disgusting black columnist, black leftist columnist for the LA Times, does she have a good heart? I'll bet she does. I'll bet she thinks she is so noble for saying that about Larry Elder. That's why it's irrelevant what you think of yourself. It is irrelevant. Only relevant is what is the consequence of what you do and what you advocate. And everything they do and advocate leads to evil.
Well, and speaking of that, the Democrats control almost everything in Colorado now. So to your point, the actions that they've taken that are causing crime to skyrocket here, the homeless problem is out of control in Denver, the cost of living is soaring, and our kids are dying. Our teen suicide rate is the 6th highest in the nation. Drug addiction rate for kids is 5th highest in the nation. No one is talking about it.
We talk about it, and of course they don't listen. We hear them, we read them, we study under them. They don't hear us, they don't read us, they don't study under us. If a left-wing 20-year-old were paid or forced to listen to good talk radio for a month, I wonder what effect it would have when they would hear what is being said here. But in any event, the litany of horrible things in Colorado that you just delineated doesn't matter to people who vote Democrat. Otherwise, they wouldn't vote Democrat. It's clear. They can't say, oh, it really bothers us, and then vote for the people who made it possible. They're lying to themselves, which is a left-wing art. It is truly, it has reached artistic levels of greatness, the ability of leftists to lie to themselves. The people who speak of love and compassion, their policies have none. This was known Colorado as beautiful in every way. It was like California. When I moved to California in my 20s in 1976, I thought I was moving to heaven. And the thing I thought most was, it's just free. California is free. It's not free anymore. And, Los Angeles City just voted that if you're not vaccinated, you can't enter a restaurant or any other place, which is absurd. There's no medicine behind this. This is all power. This has nothing to do with medicine. Why do people who had COVID have to get vaccinated? That is human abuse. It is not good for you. It is not good for you if you had COVID to get the vaccine. There is no benefit. It is probably bad for you. And the best antibodies, the most long-lasting, are natural antibodies from having had COVID. I've been trying to get COVID for a year and a half. It's the best way to be protected against COVID, is to get it naturally. The shutting down of all discussion by scientists of ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. I had Dr. Risch on my show. He is at Yale. He's an epidemiologist. He believes that hundreds of thousands of Americans have been killed because we didn't give them therapeutics. I happen to agree with him. The medical profession is corrupt. It's as corrupt as every other profession. I never expected to say this, but the Talmud was right, the second holiest book in Judaism. 2,000 years ago, the rabbis wrote, the best doctors go to hell. Yep, it's a statement. I quoted it last night, and you know why? Even then, when they absolutely did no good, they thought they were gods. It's very dangerous to think you're a god. You know, by the way, I've never told this publicly, I don't think. I've been booed at lectures very rarely, because most of the time I speak to people who tend to agree with me. I admit it, like this audience. I wish not. I would much prefer to only speak to people who don't agree with me. That's why I love going to colleges. So sometimes they'll boo, a few kids will boo, but I was roundly booed really only twice. I was invited to speak on the anniversary of Deep Throat with major liberal movie critics. And, you know, it was hilarious. I grabbed the invitation. I thought it was hilarious that they invited me. So I spoke about, I happen to have libertarian views on the pornography issue, and I acknowledge that, even to conservatives. However, there's something wrong in society when there are 500 of you watching fellatio behind me on the big screen. It's not a good sign about society. And I was booed vociferously. They thought it was a good sign. Isn't that wonderful that you could watch that with 500 other people? Okay. But the other time I was booed was by doctors. I was invited to a hospital in Los Angeles by a doctor who's a big fan of mine to speak on the false gods of modern men and women, a subject that's very dear to me. And I mentioned that there's a danger in the medical profession of self-worship. And I was roundly booed. I was stunned. Doctors think it's offensive to say there's a danger that doctors might sort of engage in self-worship, but now it's worse than ever. The American Medical Association just announced that there should be no sex listed on birth certificates. The American Medical Association. Right. A sigh was perfect response. The perfect response.
So one of the things, as I travel the state and talk to folks in my governor race, is just this resignation. Like, oh, how do we fight against this? I feel like everything's lost. It's horribly depressing. And I try and be very optimistic and positive. Like, we can do this, guys. Let's stay together. Let's focus on getting control back over our life. Because I think we should control our lives, not yours. And if that can be the essence of our campaign, I think we're okay. But, Dennis, how do each of us walk out of this room without a platform, whether I have one or you have one, and fight this on a daily basis?
Well, that's the $64,000 question, and I think about it a lot. I'll give you a number of answers. First, you have to get out of the closet. Conservatives are in the closet for the most part. We're talking a good 80 million Americans. They're in the closet like gays were in the closet 50 years ago. And if you stay in the closet, we lose the country. Now, why are conservatives in the closet? Because they're afraid of the repercussions if they come out, obviously. Some are afraid they'll lose their children, which, by the way, is not an illegitimate fear. But the state of your parent-child relations is so sad if you think that way. If I come out and as a conservative, and my son won't talk to me, my daughter won't talk to me, well, then what is the nature of your relationship now? You're being held hostage. And I feel for you, because this is so common, I feel for you. Grown men cry on my radio show, telling me about the children who won't speak to them and the grandchildren they don't see because of politics. They only love their child. You voted for Trump, you cannot poison my children, your grandchildren. That's how these brainwashed, sick children think. Partially, at least 50%, because they're probably secular, and they don't believe that God instructed us to honor your father and mother. And if you read, I know the Hebrew well, it says, even if they voted for Trump. It's true, it does not appear in the King James translation. But nevertheless, it was God's intent. It is an amazing thing that parents fear their children will do this. By the way, left-wing parents have no such fear. Do they fear coming out for Black Lives Matter and they'll lose their conservative child? The conservative child will say, you can't see your grandchildren? I can't imagine it happening, because we're better people than they are. That's why conservatives are better people than leftists. This is a perfect proof. This is a proof. You're a scumbag if you don't let your parents see their grandchildren because of their voting. You are a lowlife. I pray there's a hell for people like you. Am I passionate enough on this issue? Thank God my children have my values. Thank God. Let me tell you about that. It's an interesting, important thing. I might as well mention it. So I have two sons. It's the way it works in the Prager family. My father had two sons. I have two sons. My son has two sons. My wife has two sons. That's all I know is two sons. So I have one biological child and one adopted child, which it never even was a question in my mind. Well, could I love a non-blood child? I have so many arguments about that it's a speech I should give on its own. But anyway, this is my simple view. I'm only interested in passing on my values, not my seed. My seed is of no interest to me whatsoever. None. My values are everything. Is there even people who wonder about, well, could I love an adopted child as much? So here's a simple question. You have two children, one biological who doesn't share your values, one who you adopted who shares your values. Which would you want? Everyone would answer the second. Everyone. And if you don't, there's something wrong with you. There is something wrong with you. So I thank God both my kids share my values. I do, I thank God, because I know how many good people there are who have kids who don't. It's actually the norm. And I understand why. They sent their kids to schools. That's it, simple as that. You send your kids to study poison, they get poisoned. It's very hard to undo the damage of schooling from 5 until 23. It's very, very hard. That's where their peers are, that's where their teachers are, that's where their time is. They spend much less time with you. Schools are poison factories, I'm sorry to say. So what can you do? The first thing you can do is get out of the closet. How do you get out of the closet? You post on your Facebook page an interesting article. You don't have to say leftists are more evil than conservatives. I can, but that's different. But you don't have to. You don't have to say anything offensive. Just say, here's an interesting article. Here's an interesting speech. Post that. If you can't even post a piece from the Wall Street Journal, then your only choice is to remain in the closet the rest of your life. A girl who was deeply influenced, completely influenced by myself and PragerU, wrote me a letter. Said, I read your books, Still the Best Hope, and it's about the left and about America and about Islam. It's a really worthwhile read. Changed my life, and so did PragerU. After I read that, I went to PragerU, and I'm a junior at Harvard. So junior at Harvard was turned around from the left. I contacted her. I put her on the show. I invited her to come on the show to describe her transformation. She lives in Southern California. And I told her before she came on in the studio, Julie, you need to understand, if you come on my show, you are going to lose friends. You will be smeared on the internet. And at school, you will be pretty lonely. And I really intimidated her. I didn't want her to come on without knowing the perils. She said, can I call my mom? I thought that was very sweet. So I continued my show as she stepped out of the room, came back during the next break, said, I'm coming on the show. Came on the show, and now she describes what happened. She calls it 2 weeks of hell. She lost friends she had in elementary school. She was widely condemned on the internet, and it was 2 weeks of hell. And then she said, I entered heaven. And why? I said, number one, I was at peace with myself for the first time. I actually sleep better. You can't sleep well if you suppress who you are. It's just not possible. And she said, I met so many wonderful people by coming out of the closet. It was a great trade. So everyone has to know, you come out of the closet, other wonderful people share your values, will find you. I am deeply involved in classical music. I conduct orchestras periodically. And I have a lot of friends in major orchestras. Their transformation, one of them, in one of the most important in the country, came out of the closet as a conservative. He's been in the string section for, I don't know, 20 years. None of them knew he's conservative. Came out of the closet, and he says, I am happier than ever. Some guys in the orchestra hate my guts. So what? Some of them love me. It's okay. So the first thing is you must get out of the closet. The next thing is, do not ask yourself the question, am I optimistic or pessimistic? It is of no use. Neither is useful. Optimism is an excuse not to fight. Things will turn out fine. Why should I fight? Pessimism is an excuse not to fight. Things are going to turn out lousy. Why should I fight? My question has never been, am I optimistic or pessimistic? Never. I only ask, what does God want me to do? I'm religious. If you're not religious, just ask, what do I have to do? Okay? It works better with God, but not everybody on our side is God-centered, and I love these people, that's fine. But that's what, you have to ask, what do I do? Did the guys who stormed Normandy Beach have optimism? They peed in their pants before they went on to Normandy Beach. That's not what optimists do, correct? But they did it because they had to. This country and liberty are worth saving. So you have to fight. And one final word, because I've worked through this issue a lot. How do you become courageous? Most people are not born courageous. My answer, is so simple that you'll think it's simplistic, but it's simple and not simplistic. What you have to do is say, I want to be courageous. You are what you want to be. That's the way it works in life. I will be courageous, then you will be courageous. That's all it takes, a decision.
So Dennis, the next year, we're going to do everything we can to win back our state, whether it's for the governor race, the state senate.
Will he debate you?
Probably.
Oh, good.
I look forward to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Ask him if it bothers him, fecal matter in Denver. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much does it bother you?
I will. I look forward to that.
Yes, absolutely. In a very gentle way. I'm just curious, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much does it bother you? And I'm asking because I think the answer is 1, because you don't do anything about it.
That's a great question. You know, we're also fighting from the bottom up, right? Governor's race down, bottom up, school board races, which, Lauren, where are you? Put your hand up. Lauren's running for school board. Give her a hand. In District 11. So Lauren bottom up, me top down. How the heck do we do this?
How do you win?
Yes.
That's why I'm not running. There's no answer to that question. The issue is, can you raise enough issues to at least have people start rethinking their Pavlovian support for Democrats? So that would be a victory. That's why just a series of questions, and even saying into the microphone, you know, some of my relatives are Democrats. I understand where you're coming from. But the Democratic Party is not the Democratic Party of FDR and Harry Truman. It isn't. It's the party of Lenin, not the party of Truman. And then you give an example. They are for segregated dormitories. Are you, Governor? Have you said a word about the segregated dorm at the University of Colorado at Boulder? Is it at Boulder?
Yes.
Yeah, have you said a word? I'll bet he hasn't.
No.
Because he's a wimp. All Democrats are wimps, or they wouldn't be Democrats. They will never say a word against the left. Never. Better to have a segregated dorm and get the left-wing vote. Why have you said nothing, Governor, about segregation at the University of Colorado? Are you for it?
I'm looking forward to asking him that.
Good. I'll watch the debate.
All right, last question came through on social media. What is your favorite cigar?
Now we're talking important stuff. Okay.
Bulldogs are for me, but cigars are for you.
I know, I get it, I do. By the way, people know I love cigars, and often people bring them. None of you did. Painful moment for me. But anyway, people know, and I get cigars. And so I want to say a word about that. I fight all the time, as you know. And I truly do maximize joy in my life. Cigars are a source of joy. So it's important to me. I stay sane for a lot of reasons because I could go nuts. I am so aware of the dangers of the left to Western civilization, not just to the United States, to the entire Western civilization. I mean, what they're doing to classical music is unbelievable. The head music critic at the New York Times came out 2 years ago for the abolition of blind auditions. You know what a blind audition is? Somebody, let's say, is auditioning for trumpet or violin. So behind a curtain, they play the trumpet or violin. So there's no possible way the jury, the members of the orchestra, and the conductor who choose the next trumpeter or next violinist can choose, they don't know if it's a friend They don't know if it's a male. They don't know if it's a white. They know nothing. They only know, is it the best trumpeter trying out? He came out against it. He wants trumpeters and violinists and others chosen for the New York Philharmonic on the basis of race. That ends, it ends everything that liberalism and Western civilization have stood for. We want the best possible orchestra. If every single one ends up Asian, then you have an Asian orchestra. That's the way it works. And they are disproportionately Asian. So what? Is Beethoven sounding great or not? That is my only question. The faces of those playing is of no interest to me. Just as it is of no interest to NBA fans, the color of the players in basketball. Do they have blind audition in basketball? Yes, they do. They don't choose on the basis of race. There's no racial parity in basketball. And there shouldn't be. I want the best players to play, end of issue. So I have a lot of ways of staying happy. Religion is one, my family, my friends. That's why I said I didn't leave California. I'm not going to leave my friends. They're too much part of my life. But you have to work. The more you understand the threat to this country, the more you have to work on your happiness. You have to work on your happiness in normal times, but you especially do now. Friends, kindred spirits is probably the best way. To be alone, to fight alone is very, very hard. So you must find kindred spirits. And I said this all of my life on my radio show, that couples should date for couples. People should date for friends the way they dated for spouses. It's very important. It's critical in life. So when you ask me about cigars, yes, it's one of my joys, and I try to maximize those joys given what is going on now. So is that the final question?
Well, I think they wanted to know which cigar brand you really liked.
Oh, cigar brand. Okay, that's fine. There's no answer to that any more than what is your favorite food? There's no favorite food because even if you have a favorite food, you wouldn't eat it every day.
That's a good point.
It would become your least favorite food within 2 weeks. So I smoke a whole variety of cigars. However, 90% are Nicaragua and strong. That's what I like, strong Nicaraguan cigars.
I think you just blew up social media for Nicaragua strong cigars, so we're good. Well, Dennis, thank you so much for giving us some of your time and wisdom.
Well, thank you. You're a fighter. You are, and I salute you. Yeah. So I'll send you a whole list of questions to ask him at the debate.
I would love that.
Yeah. I'd love to know. He'll get around it, but it puts ideas in the listeners' minds. That's the point. The state is worse since you were governor. That's a fact, Governor. No one can deny it. They're lying to themselves if they deny it. Okay, that's just the way it is. Newsom, the whole gang. They govern states that become worse. And Biden, the damage this man has done to this country, and the good that the guy. That's my theory. I'll just say this one time. It is very nice to be nice. I much prefer being with nice people than not nice people. But I don't elect leaders based on niceness. In fact, if they're too nice, they won't be effective. So I didn't ask once, do I like Donald Trump? It is of no interest to me or the country whether I like Donald Trump. I only asked, are his policies making this country better? Virtually every day. The man was a great president. One of the greatest presidents, if not the greatest, since Lincoln. And by the way, I say that, and I'm not dying for him to run again, because he sucks the oxygen out of the room, and it's not good. You have to defeat the left. I am more committed to defeating the left than supporting Donald Trump. If he's nominated, of course I'll support him. But I just want you to have a clear picture of what needs to be done. The Democrats need to be defeated. That is the only thing you should think about, not do you love Donald Trump. It is not important if you do or don't. And it's not important if people hated Donald Trump. Did he do good? The man did so much good for this country. We have gone from a surplus of oil and natural gas to now having to import it. There is a massive energy gap because of the idiocy of relying on green energy. In England, what people are paying, the middle class, in Germany, the middle class, because Merkel got rid of nuclear power. By the way, that proves the whole green energy thing is dishonest, that they're not for nuclear power. It's the cleanest energy. It's almost completely safe. Nothing is completely safe, but they're not for it because they want to undo the economies of the West. That's what they want to do. They're not interested in solutions to problems. So I just wanted to say that about the president and about who I would support. And you got to fight. You fight to the best of your ability. But everyone can. And post a PragerU video. No, I mean it. But here's the beauty. Don't post one on politics. Post one on happiness or forgiveness. We have a lot of videos just on beautiful things. It'll drive the left nuts. A PragerU video on how to forgive people who have hurt you. There is. It's given by a psychiatrist from UCLA. So don't put up one. And then, so you gingerly wet your feet until you put up the one that drove the class crazy.
Okay, that's fair.
Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you. Thank you.